I have to address the absolutely horrendously like horrific artwork that you guys have got, as in like like the horror aspect, not like oh my god, it's the shittest thing I've ever seen. um, I just
Yeah,
love
so
it.
what's up with your shitty artwork, guys?
Yeah. So I have the wonderful Alex and Kyle of Undeath with me today, and your cat, I think, Kyle.
Oh yeah.
What's your cat's name?
His name is Kashmir.
Kashmir.
He's a
That's
baby. Yeah.
awesome. After Led Zeppelin, right?
Actually, after a kombucha flavor at my girlfriend's kombucha brewery, she found him there.
Well, I guess that's close enough. So
I'm sure Robert Plant was drinking a lot of booch when he was laying down those box.
Definitely, definitely.
first off, Jesus Christ, this thing is fucking awesome. Absolutely fantastic.
Hell yeah. Thank you so much. I
Yeah,
think so
thanks, man.
too. I think it's pretty great.
So, what would you say are some of the themes on this record? Is it kind of dispatching people, um, as is normal in death metal, or?
Lots
Yeah.
of dispatching people for sure. Continuing themes from our last stuff of, you know, skeleton armies from space, uh, like the necrobionics thing, as well as some at least newer like musical ideas too, more like two part like gosh, uh two guitar parts that are not just the same happening at the same time. Some of our most technical material too. I don't know, these aren't really themes, but
Technicality is a theme. It's more
yeah, I
technical.
mean, we bumped it up. We always do.
I mean, there's tech death, which is an entire genre based
Yeah,
on rock
yeah, no, we
reality,
don't
right?
really sound like that. No, no. We don't really sound like Tech Death. No.
This
Put
isn't.
that on the sticker. We don't really sound like Tech Death.
So, I guess, lyrically, where did you kind of draw inspiration from this time around on More Insane?
Um, you know, different medias, games, movies, books, TV, that kind of stuff. I mean, like for example, Cramped Caskets is like literally named after an enemy from Bloodborne. The song is not necessarily about that, but definitely inspired. Disputatious Malignancy, another kind of like just the themes of Bloodborne, like religion and monsters, uh, that kind of stuff.
I think when Kyle brought me the lyrics to Disputatious Malignancy for the first time, it was described to me as a suffocation meets Bloodborne style fuck God song.
Well,
And that's like I feel like that's a perfect descriptor for it.
yeah.
Yeah, and then I don't know, More Insane. Like that song is just about being more insane.
That's
That's it.
that's exactly what it says on the tin, right?
Literally, I got nothing else to add to that.
Well, one thing I did think though, like talking about themes and some of the lyrics and things like that, is it kind of gave me a little bit more of a philosophical kind of vibe. I thought,
Ooh,
instead of kind of like just kind of straight up gore, which I thought was quite interesting.
you hear that, Kyle?
I mean, look,
Philo-
the philosophy
philosophy.
of fucking death metal. Uh, well, that's cool. What made you think that?
Just some of the choice of lyrics, and like I also thought some of like I think is it the first track, Dead from Beyond, kind of made me think of
Yeah,
like
yeah,
the war and things like that, and just kind of like not necessarily something where it does just kind of look like a like a horror movie or a sci-fi kind of vibe, which I thought was quite interesting.
sure.
And Sutured for War as well. That song itself is really cool, and I feel like is it talking about reanimating the corpses that you've killed to like kill everyone else.
Basically, except also combining them into one big corpse
Yes. Yeah,
that's
yeah.
made of lots of smaller guys. Yeah, that's totally like a World of Warcraft inspired song. Uh, hate to make it seem more milquetoast than it is, but yeah.
You know, I feel like we always. I'm definitely guilty of this myself. We kind of undersell like the lyrical aspect of the band and kind of slot things into very convenient categories of like.
Totally. I mean, all of our
But
songs have double, triple meanings.
yeah, but there's it's like impossible for us to be sincere about this, but we do put some real thought into the lyrical content for sure. But that is definitely the first time that somebody has described our band as philosophical. So I'll take that. That's cool.
So, so when did you guys know that it was kind of like time to start writing album three? Is it just kind of like a constant sort of stream of writing with you guys?
Yeah, I mean, we there sometimes I hear about other bands. I'm like, I don't know, maybe we'll get to this point someday. But I feel like I hear about bands booking like writing sessions and stuff like that, and they're like, okay, we've toured for X amount of time. Now it's time to do the Y thing, which is sitting down and writing our next album. And that I'm sure that works perfectly for lots of bands out there, but that's just never made sense to me because I feel like the way our band operates, we're always just in some stage of writing, whether it's like very intense or very casual. I mean, Kyle can speak for himself here, but I feel like Kyle's writing all the time, Jared's writing all the time, Tommy's writing all the time. Like everybody's just always working on stuff, and then it's just a matter of when either three or four or all of us can get together and hammer out the details on stuff. So there wasn't really a specific moment where it was, okay, we have to write our third album now. It was just kind of like, the its time had been out for enough where we were like, do we have enough songs for a third album? I feel like that was more like it. And then it was just a matter of fine tuning what we had and fleshing everything out so that it was album ready.
It's pretty, I have to say, it's pretty admirable. Like you guys are becoming quite prolific, really.
Kyle's a warrior, dude. He's a soldier of death metal. He's on the front lines every day. And I sometimes I look at our Encyclopedia Metallum page and I look at like the early years of this band and I'm like, how the fuck do we put out like 4 things in a year? That's crazy. But
They were
uh,
shitty.
they were much shorter. That's the answer to that question.
It's kind of easier to write for an EP size thing because when you're doing 4 tracks, you can be writing parts for one track and you'd be like, oh, well, I already done something like this in a different track, so I won't do it. But when you're talking 10 tracks across a 35-minute album, it's just a different way of writing material. You got to think of like, well, I need a really good first song of the record that's going to show everyone what the record's all about. And obviously, you need a couple good single songs. You need some more technical numbers. I just like to have an album with a bunch of different kinds of songs that still flows well.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's funny that you guys say that it's like a longer album because I felt like, I think it's what, like 33, 34 minutes long, this record, and I thought it was just the perfect amount of time because it's intense enough for you to like really, really enjoy it and like it really fucking whacks you over the head, but you can go back to it and it doesn't sort of overstay its welcome.
Oh
Cool.
yeah,
Hell
I
yeah.
don't think the record's long. I was just saying that a record is longer than a EP.
More philosophy. Yeah.
Well, I think this record is what, maybe 60 seconds, maybe like 70 seconds longer than the last one. I think they're almost
Yeah.
all
It's
right around
practically a double
34
album for us.
minutes.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
double
I mean,
concept
we
album.
we didn't. What's funny? Here's some inside baseball. We didn't time this record at all. I don't think the until after it was recorded. And typically, with our last 2 albums, I remember a time in which we were going in to record and we were like, "Fuck, how long is this thing?" And we would just play all the tracks front to back, and then it was like, "Okay, it's 35 minutes, 34 minutes, whatever." And with this one, we didn't do that for whatever reason. I think we just forgot, which is classic Undeath. And then we got into the studio and we were tracking everything. And I remember looking at the track list at multiple points and being like, holy shit, this album's going to be like 45 minutes long. And I don't know why I thought that, but I was like, this is going to be an epic from us. This is going to require like 2 VHS tapes like Titanic. But no, it was then we got the track list back, and nope, 34 minutes. So it's exactly as long as all of our other ones.
Yeah, and the first two are actually the exact same length, down to the second.
Which
No
was
way.
entirely intentional.
Because obviously, like, it does definitely sound like Undeath, but there are some big changes, I think, in terms of like the sound and overall sort of like some of the melodies, like you said. And what was the writing process like for the record? Was it kind of like just kind of as a business as normal, or were you guys trying something different actively?
Hmm.
I think for the most part it was, business as normal. It's been 2 years since the last record, and I think we've all done a lot of playing and practicing since then. Typically I'd say if you're a good band, you want to grow musically in between your releases. And that's what I wanted to do. So yeah, there's some, new stuff we've never done. There's some stuff that we always do. Uh, but overall, yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I think like a old on Death could probably never have written a song like Suture for War. Don't think that without Jared in the band, his track Disattachment of a Prophylactic in the Brain would ever have come to fruition. So I think there's a lot of stuff on this record we wouldn't have done before. No, like Bounty Hunter, probably actually the most simple on Death track. Very contrasting to a lot of the material on the record, which I like. I don't think we would have done something like that before. So
Yeah, and I just to piggyback off that, I think a lot of that comes, like Kyle said, with when you spend enough time in between records playing out and kind of growing as a performer and a musician, you gain confidence naturally, and you feel like you maybe have the capacity to stretch your legs a little bit and kind of venture into some new territory that you might not necessarily feel like you would have been able to accomplish beforehand. And I feel like that's kind of what we did with this record, not in like a particularly drastic way, but it's an evolution. It's we're evolving. We're not changing, and that's kind of how I look at it. But for the most part, yeah, I'd say it felt outside of the studio business as usual.
This was your first record working with Mark Lewis, so obviously he's such a legendary person in the world of death metal. But what was it that made you guys think, okay, he's going to be the guy for this record?
Well, I mean, we love Scoops, who we did this time with, and but we just, we had some conversations in the time after the record was out, and things kind of calmed down a little bit, and we decided that we just wanted to go with somebody different this time around. We just wanted to kind of stretch out a little bit and see what was out there. And at least for me, and I feel like the other guys in the band would attest to this too, I just wanted a record, especially for the material that we were writing, to just be bigger. I wanted it to sound big. I wanted it to sound bright. I wanted it to sound roomy. I wanted it to be like not a dark and oppressive listen. Not that the last one was, but just like I wanted something that when you turned it on, you wanted to just like turn it up and it still sounded just as good, if not better, than it did before. And I feel like we were all kind of on the same page with that. And we were thinking about people who might be able to do that idea justice. And Mark's name came up a bunch, when we were looking at records that he's done that we like the production on. And, he was suggested to us a few times, which was very serendipitous because we were already kind of thinking about him. And what sealed the deal, at least for me, is we played a show in Birmingham, Alabama, and Mark came out to it just to kind of introduce himself to us, and because he had heard that we were interested in working with him. And the dynamic was just there from the very beginning. We have very similar juvenile senses of humor. We're very kind of like on the same page for the most part with the kind of metal that we listen to the most. We obviously have tons of respect for him as an engineer and a producer, I feel like he has respect for us as musicians and as like a band with our own ideas and ways of doing things. So we just clicked right off the bat, and from that moment on, it was like, yeah, this is a go. We want to work with this guy.
Oh, amazing. What would you say that he, because I feel like Mark is very much kind of involved in whoever he produces and things like that. But what would you say that aside from sonically, like, you know, in terms of maybe like, did he help with any arrangements or anything like that? Like, what did he bring to the table?
Very,
Um,
like very like infrequently here and there. Maybe he'd be like, maybe this part could use like some more words here or something. But he never really like, heavy-handedly did his own thing or whatever.
yeah, I mean, he commented a bunch about. He was like, "You guys are so prepared," which is not to toot our own horns or anything, but I think he was just taken aback by the fact that we came into the studio with 10 songs that were, effectively done,
Done.
and
Yeah, totally.
he was maybe a little bit more used to building songs from scratch with bands, or just like having bands come in with 4 or 5 songs and then like a handful of ideas, and then he's got to kind of build them up. So I think, especially us being on the younger side of the spectrum, I think he was kind of surprised by that. I think he was expecting us to be a little bit more unprepared, which was a good feeling. It made us enter that whole recording session with a lot of confidence, I feel like. And yeah, but beyond that, I mean, speaking personally, he helped me with my approach vocally a ton. He really kind of was able to dig in deep with me and coach performance out of me that I haven't had any engineer or producer be able to do yet. And that's not a slight on anybody else we've worked with, but with Mark, I think Mark is the first like big metal producer that we've ever worked with. And he's worked with Corpse Grinder, he worked with Trevor from Black Dahlia Murder, like he's worked with tons of vocalists that I really admire. So I think he's kind of the first guy who was able to kind of see what I was going for and what I wanted to do, and help me get out of my box and help me kind of not be so shy in the booth. And that was cool. So that was a huge thing that he was able to at least do for me personally. But beyond that, he was just a great presence and very professional. And yeah, it was just really easy.
I have to say, like, I totally agree. I think this is your most like diverse and sort of, you know, as I don't know, can you say that death metal is vulnerable? Kind of
Sure.
performance, you know, like it's just brilliant, man. Honestly.
Thank you. Yeah, I really appreciate that, man. I'm very proud of what we did together on the record, and with like, just to give it context, I don't want to just like harp on my own shit too much, but just for the purpose of the interview, like I remember when we did Legions, like Kyle and I tracked my vocals in my old apartment, and that was besides the demos, like the first time I had ever really recorded vocals for anything metal, So I had no idea what I should be doing. And then, we kind of jumped right into recording its time not long after that in the grand scheme of things, and hadn't really played a lot of shows in between Legions in its time, so still kind of harboring a lot of the same bad habits and a lot of the same shyness when it comes to tracking vocals. And, you know, Mark was kind of the first guy who, like I'm coming in there for more Insane with a lot more experience live. So that definitely helped a lot. I feel like I kind of built up my chops a lot more. But Mark was kind of the first guy that we had worked with who I feel like could see down the road a little bit more. And he was like, okay, like I know what you want to do and I want to help you get there. And that was cool. That was a very like I I don't want to say enlightening experience because then it sounds like it was spiritual, which it wasn't, but it was work, but it was very illuminating, and it was cool being able to kind of like go down that road with him.
I have to address the absolutely horrendously like horrific artwork that you guys have got, as in like, you know, like the horror aspect, not like, oh my God, it's the shittest thing I've ever seen. um I just
Yeah,
love
so
it.
what's up with your shitty artwork, guys?
Yeah. Yeah, no. Um I love it because it feels like it's kind of almost like we were in the universe of Legions or something like that, and that was like in this person's head or something.
Yeah,
Dude,
I
that's
think
that's the idea.
yeah, that is definitely what we were going for. You know, I feel like its time was zoomed out of lesions, and then this one is just zoomed out of that, like to the nth degree.
I also loved it because it has white on it, and it's very, like it's kind of like what you wouldn't necessarily expect, I think, from Undeath, but also what you would, you know?
Yeah, it popped, right?
Yeah, we try to keep people on their toes. You know, I love that it's got a big fucking white background. I love that it pops like that. I just feel like if the way I visualize it is if you were flipping through a stack of records at a record store and you're in the metal section, it's like Evil Castle, 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 and then it's like, whoa, what's this white album? And then you would pick it up and like, oh, it's Undeath. That's how I see it.
That's it. That's gonna be the little like soundbite. Evil Castle, Evil Castle, Evil Castle.
Yeah, and you know what? Like we're all metal fans here. Like
I love Evil Castles.
I would say like in my top 50 metal records, at least half of them have some varietal of Evil Castle on the cover. That's not a diss. We just like to talk a little shit.
No, of course, but it's true because otherwise, how do you stand out, as you've basically created the white album of death metal, right?
Yeah. I would say Disputatious is kind of our octopus's garden.
Correct me if I'm wrong here, but would it be fair to say that, like on Legions, you guys, because like, I kind of known you guys for a little while now and throughout these albums,
Yeah,
and I feel like you're like too long. Um and
No, I always look forward to our biannual tryst chat.
me too, bud.
Yeah.
it's not
This is
it's not
like
an interview anymore. It's a biannual
no, this is like our family reunion, man. Like when this interview rolls around, this is how I know that like the album cycle has started again. Like I get to talk to I get to talk to Tris. I never get to talk to you.
Oh man, you're too kind, honestly. But I felt like, when Legions kind of came out, it was a little bit like, holy fuck, what's going on? Like, this is amazing, but kind of hold on to something. Whereas, especially, even chatting to you guys now, I feel like this is very much kind of like, now we deserve this. Like, we work hard, and like, I'm basically trying to say that I feel like this is your statement where you're like, yeah, we are not fucking around kind of thing.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I mean, the third album historically is a big one, right? Like, um, I mean, Tomb of the Mutilated comes to mind immediately. Like, that's kind of a statement album for Cannibal for sure. Where they kind of, to me, that's the one that when you listen to it, the Bleeding too, but to me, Tomb is kind of the very first one where you feel like they've really dialed in what they're trying to do, and it's like they obviously had a lot of places to go after that, of course, and it was only onward and upward. But for them, that's like to me the first record that feels like this is a fucking Cannibal Corpse record, you know. And I kind of feel that way for us too about this one, where obviously our last two albums are on Death Records, no doubt about it. But this one really feels like we have our legs under us completely for the first time, and we really know exactly what we want to do, and we know where we want to go, and we know what we've done. Like the to put it in kind of like Dune Kwisatz Haderach terms, like the past, the present, and the future are all like equally clear to us right now, and it feels like anything's possible. And I feel like I wouldn't be able to have that kind of sensation of confidence if we hadn't made this record, and I'm very proud of it.
Yeah, man, as you should be.
Yeah, I mean, we've been a band coming up here. or maybe even just past about 5 years. So, you know,
That's
Yeah,
wild.
and we all know each other really well at this point, and the thing that I feel like can't be overstated is like we, at least for me, like I met all of the guys in the band from starting the band, so it's like I feel like so many bands you're like close friends with these people first, and then you're like, let's start a band, and then you start a band, but you have all this baggage from your friendship in the past. And with Undeath, it's kind of like a unique experience because I feel like the thing that ties us all together is this band, and that kind of creates a very like healthy work environment where like the way that we are all the most connected to one another, not that we're not friends outside of the band, because obviously we are, like we're all close friends, but it's like we built this thing together, and it's the big unifier for all of us. So we all have this vested interest in taking it as far as it can go and making stuff that we're proud of. And that's been a really cool experience. And yeah, we've been a band for like 5 or 6 years now, and I feel like we're just like we just can't slow down.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. But it's remarkable to see what you guys have achieved in 5 years. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
thanks,
I
dude.
still feel, yeah, thank you. And I still feel like we've got a long way to go. That's the kind of the thing that drives me is I I'm very proud of what we've done, and I'm very proud of what we are going, or what's like on the immediate horizon, but I just want to keep going. I want to just see what's possible. And that's kind of the thing that, not the thing, but a big thing that keeps me motivated. Just kind of keep the wheels rolling.
mhm. So what would you say was kind of maybe, I don't know, a couple of the most important moments in the writing process of this record? Like, were there sort of like key bits where you're like, oh, that's gonna be cool, or like, something that really kind of stirred something in you?
Hmm.
Um, I think uh, one of the first songs I was most really happy with on the record was Suture for War. I think the arrangement kind of came along right after we were on that Up from the Sewer Black Dahlia tour. This was going back a few years now. And I wrote the lyrics, or maybe I should not even say lyrics. The vocal rhythm sort of like came to me first, and then I sort of wrote a riff around that, and that's the chorus riff of that track. And that was like a really big one because I was kind of toying with some of the riffs that were already in the track, and I couldn't make them all work until I had that one. So I don't know. That was a cool one. Trying to think like Cramped Caskets at one point had a completely different and worse arrangement that I just wound up kind of shifting, and then that one came together really fast. It was only like 2 days, of after having the parts and whatever. So
Yeah, I remember. I mean, even just like the title, More Insane. I remember we were on tour, and I think it was on that Slave to the Grave tour, and we were in New York, and we were at like some bar after the show, and Kyle and I were just like drinking, and Kyle was like, "Yeah, I'm writing this song right now. I think I'm gonna call it More Insane." And I was like, "That is so fucking good." I was like, "I love that. That is such a good song title." And I was like, "That should be the album title too." Like that was a cool moment where I feel like all of our album titles have kind of come together in the same way, where Kyle's been like, just out of the blue, like, I'm thinking about calling it this, and then it's just like a bolt of lightning, and I'm like, fuck, that's awesome. Yeah.
I
Um,
forgot More Insane goes back that far too. Yeah.
yeah, like that's always like a part of the album creation process that I really cherish. It's like the first time that the title crystallizes. That always feels really cool. And beyond that, I mean, I remember when we were in the studio doing pre-production with Mark, and Kyle had a phone demo of Disputatious, and I'm pretty sure he was just like playing it on the couch or something to Matt or Tommy or somebody, and I was listening to it, and I was like, "That is so good." I was like, "That has to be on this record." Like, I just hearing this Practice Space demo through phone speakers, I was like immediately in love with that song. I was like, that I need to hear this thing fleshed out.
Awesome. Yeah, it's I think kind of going to the more insane title, it's everything we've just been talking about. It encapsulates it perfectly as well.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. I just think it's like it's it's punchy, it's catchy, it's 2 words, and it can kind of like it can mean so many different things, like depending on the context that you put it in. Like, yeah, it can be as simple as like the record sounds more insane than the other ones, right? Like you could view it that simply and you'd be right, but it's also like you can extrapolate so much from it, and I think that's like what all of my favorite album titles do is they're simple, but they're like evocative in a way that's kind of secretly complex. Not to sound too like pretentious about it, but that I love the title for all of those reasons, and I like from the moment that Kyle was like, I'm writing the song called More Insane, I just couldn't get it out of my head. I was like, that has to be the name of this record.
Oh, that's awesome. You could say it was even philosophical.
Yeah, it was all predetermined. And that's not to say we didn't toy with other ideas too. I mean, I think there was a point in which we were thinking about calling it Suture for War, which I like that title a lot too, but to me it's just kind of like once I got the bug in my head of calling it More Insane, it was just like everything else just felt flat. And it was like this is so good. Like I would just kick myself if we didn't stick with this as the title.
Absolutely. So I guess, finally, what would you say that More Insane has taught you guys, like, either individually or like together as a band or,
That's a good question.
Don't be afraid to write a simple riff.
That's a good one. I mean, I feel like the studio process and just how kind of rigorous everything was really brought us all together. And not that we weren't close before, but it kind of made everybody like way more dialed in than we were before, and just kind of like uh, cognizant of things that we can always do as individuals to kind of tighten stuff up. I think that is something that was really important. I mean, for me, it definitely taught me a degree of like professionalism, I guess. It's kind of like a strange way to put it, but I mean, I remember when we were doing the last 2 records, I was like drinking and smoking weed the entire time that we were recording, and because I didn't give a fuck. I was like,
yeah.
I was like, it's death metal, dude. Like we're here to party. Like let's write a record. Like who cares? We'll record it. It's gonna sound good. And with this one, it was the exact opposite. I mean, I drank a little bit, I smoked a little bit, but when it was go time, it was go time, and it was tea and room temperature water and taking things way more seriously than I did before. And and then listening to the final results, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do that from now on. I'm not gonna take this so lightly. And so it definitely taught me that for sure.
So I just want to say thank you so much for appearing on the channel. Fucking hell.
On the
Okay.
charnel.
Thank you so much, guys, for appearing on the channel. I really, really appreciate it. And yeah, it's fucking killer album.
Thank you, Tris. It is
Thanks for having us,
always,
buddy.
always, always, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for having us.